A vulnerable German Shepherd puppy, just a few weeks old, stood alone in an open field, his tiny body quivering. He was too young to grasp the danger, too weak to flee, and too innocent to know what was approaching. Then the shadows descended. Dozens of crows circled above him, their black wings slicing through the sky. They landed around him slowly and deliberately, closing in from all sides. Their sharp beaks glinted in the sunlight, their eyes fixed on him like hunters stalking their prey. The puppy whimpered, taking a hesitant step back, but there was nowhere to escape, no one to rescue him. The crows spread their wings, letting out eerie cries. The attack was imminent. But then, something unexpected happened, something so shocking it changed everything in an instant. Stay until the end, because this story will leave you breathless. The open field stretched endlessly beneath the afternoon sun, golden grass swaying gently in the breeze. It was quiet, too quiet. No birds chirped, no rustling in the bushes, just an unsettling stillness that felt unnatural. In the midst of that emptiness, a tiny German Shepherd puppy stood alone. He was no more than a few weeks old, his small body thin and fragile, his fur still soft like baby fluff. His ears, not yet fully erect, twitched slightly as he tried to make sense of his surroundings. He didn't belong here. He didn't know how he got here, and worst of all, he didn't know how to leave. He had spent the last hour wandering aimlessly, his tiny paws kicking up dust as he searched for something, anything familiar. But there was nothing, just the endless golden grass and the open sky above. Then the sky changed. A flicker of movement above caught his attention. The first shadow swept across the field, then another, and another. The puppy looked up, his innocent eyes reflecting the swirling mass of dark wings circling above. At first, he didn't understand. He tilted his head, his floppy ears twitching. What were they? Why were they watching him? Then they began to descend. The first crow landed 10 feet away, then another and another. Their beady black eyes locked onto him, unblinking, their sharp beaks clacking softly as if whispering secrets to one another, testing the air, judging, calculating. The puppy took a small step backward, his tail curling slightly between his legs. The crows moved closer. One hopped forward, its claws raking through the dry grass. Another flapped its wings once, a warning. The puppy let out a small, uncertain whimper. He was still too young to know fear the way an older dog would, but deep in his tiny chest, something instinctual told him to run. So he turned, and that's when they attacked. The first crow lunged, its wings outstretched, its sharp talons slashing at the air. The puppy yelped, stumbling back as the bird swooped inches from his face. Another crow shot forward, snapping, its beak just shy of his ear. Panic surged through him. He tried to run, but there were too many. The crows moved as one, hopping, lunging, blocking his escape. Their dark feathers rustled like dead leaves, their calls turning into a chaotic, shrill chorus. The puppy cried out, his small body trembling. The largest crow flapped its wings, rising into the air, then dove straight for him. The puppy closed his eyes, a sudden deafening snarl splitting the air. Something massive crashed into the field, a blur of fur, a streak of muscle and power. The world exploded into chaos. Crows shrieked in terror, their wings beating furiously as a full-grown German Shepherd barreled into their ranks like a storm. Teeth snapped, wings flapped wildly, and the birds scattered in all directions. The puppy's eyes flew open, towering. Over him was a massive, battle-scarred shepherd, his deep brown coat shimmering under the sun, his lips curled back, exposing lethal, gleaming fangs. The crows tried to regroup. One dove at the shepherd, but with a swift movement he lunged, his powerful jaws clamping down on a wing. A blood-curdling shriek filled the air. The other crows panicked, their deadly coordination shattered, and, in a flurry of black wings, they fled. For the first time, silence returned to the field. The big shepherd stood still, his chest heaving, watching the sky, waiting, making sure they were gone. Then slowly, he turned to the puppy. The smaller dog stared up in awe, his tiny body still shaking. The shepherd studied him for a long moment, then in a voice deep and firm, but not unkind, he spoke. "You're not safe here." The puppy blinked, then hesitantly took a single step forward, and the big shepherd didn't stop him. The large German shepherd stood like a statue, his gaze locked onto the tiny, trembling puppy before him. The puppy hesitated, his small body still hunched, his tail curled tightly against his belly, his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't know this dog, but he had just saved him. The large shepherd took a slow step forward. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said, his deep voice firm but not unkind. The puppy flinched at the sound, his ears pressing back. The older dog sighed, his sharp eyes scanning the open field. The crows were gone for now, but the sun was starting to dip lower in the sky, and that meant more dangers would come. Coyotes, stray dogs, worse. He turned back to the puppy. "Where's your pack?" The small shepherd didn't answer, not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't know. He lowered his head, ears twitching uncertainly. The big shepherd exhaled sharply. "Figures," he muttered under his breath. His sharp eyes softened slightly. "You're lost, aren't you?" The puppy hesitated, then gave a tiny nod. Something in the older dog's expression changed. Recognition, understanding, because he knew that feeling. The big shepherd studied the pup carefully. He was young, far too young to be alone. His fur was still soft and fluffy, his paws slightly oversized, his legs clumsy, his ribs just barely showing beneath his thin coat. He hadn't eaten in a while. The older dog's jaw tightened. "Come with me." The puppy froze, his little legs locked in place. The big shepherd glanced back, waiting. "I won't ask again," he said. "If you stay out here, you won't survive the night." The wind rustled the tall grass around them. The puppy looked around as if trying to decide whether to trust him, but what choice did he have? He was alone, no food, no shelter, and the big dog had just saved him. The puppy swallowed hard, then took a shaky step forward, then another and another. The big shepherd didn't stop him. When the pup finally reached his side, the older dog gave a single approving nod. "Stay close," he said, "and keep up." Then, without another word, he turned and started walking. For a moment, the puppy stood frozen, then hurried after him. The journey was slow. The puppy's legs were short and unsteady, and he struggled to keep up. The bigger dog kept his pace measured, glancing back every so often. Darkness was creeping. Unsure, the air grew colder. The sounds of the night, crickets, distant howls, the rustling of unseen creatures grew louder. The puppy stayed close, his small paws padding over the dirt. He wasn't sure where they were going, but for the first time, he wasn't alone. After what felt like forever, the big shepherd finally slowed. "We're here." The puppy blinked up at him, then turned his head, and what he saw made his breath hitch. A small, abandoned cabin sat nestled between two massive trees. Its wooden walls were worn with age, the door slightly tilted on its hinges, but inside, the glow of a small, flickering fire cast a warm light against the darkness. The scent of dry hay and something faintly meaty drifted through the air, and more than anything, it felt safe. The big shepherd stepped inside first. The cabin wasn't much, but it was home. A worn blanket lay in the corner. A small, rusted metal bowl sat near the fire, filled with scraps of meat and bones. The puppy hesitated at the entrance. The older dog looked back. "Well, you coming?" The little shepherd took a slow, cautious step inside. The warmth wrapped around him immediately. His fur was still cold from the evening wind, and he instinctively moved closer to the fire. His nose twitched. The smell of food was stronger now, and his stomach clenched painfully. The big shepherd noticed. Without a word, he nudged the bowl toward him. "Eat," he said. The puppy didn't hesitate. He took a tiny, unsure bite, then another. The meat was dry and tough, but to him, it was the best thing he had ever tasted. The big shepherd watched him quietly. After a few moments, the older dog sighed and lay down beside the fire. "I'll keep watch," he murmured. The puppy looked up at him, chewing slowly. There was something different about this dog. He wasn't just some stray. He had survived out here for a long time, and now for some reason, he was letting him stay. The little shepherd finished his last bite and curled up near the fire. For the first time since he had woken up in that empty field, he didn't feel afraid. The fire crackled softly, casting flickering shadows across the cabin walls. The warmth seeped into the little shepherd's fur, lulling him into a drowsy haze. For the first time in what felt like forever, he wasn't cold. He stretched his tiny paws forward, feeling the heat on his face. His belly, now full for the first time in days, wasn't aching anymore. But even as exhaustion tugged at him, he couldn't sleep. Not yet. His small dark eyes flicked toward the big shepherd resting near the fire. The older dog lay still, his head resting on his paws, his ears twitching slightly, as if he were still listening for danger. He had barely spoken since they arrived. The little shepherd's mind swirled with questions. Who was he? Why did he live out here alone? And why had he saved him? The puppy shifted slightly, his voice hesitant. Are you going to leave me? The big shepherd's ears flicked. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then he let out a quiet breath. No, he said simply. The puppy blinked, surprised by the certainty in his voice. Something inside his tiny chest loosened. He curled up tighter, his eyes growing heavier. Good, he murmured softly, and for the first time since he had been abandoned, he fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. The morning light streamed through the gaps in the wooden walls. The little shepherd stirred, blinking the sleep from his eyes. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then the scent of the cabin, wood, fire, and the faint musk of the older dog brought it all back. He yawned, stretching his small limbs, and looked around. The big shepherd was already awake, sitting near the doorway, his broad shoulders tense, eyes locked on the world outside. The puppy hesitated, then padded closer. The cold morning air sent a small shiver through his body. The older dog noticed, but didn't look down at him. Storm's coming, he murmured. The puppy tilted his head. What's a storm? The big shepherd huffed in amusement, but there was no warmth in it. You'll find out soon enough. The sky beyond the trees had darkened, the air growing thick and heavy. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled. The puppy's ears twitched at the sound. Something about it made his fur prickle. He shuffled a little closer to the big shepherd, watching the sky. What's your name? The question slipped out before he could stop it. The big shepherd finally looked at him. For a moment, his amber eyes were unreadable. Then with a quiet sigh, he said, Ghost. The puppy blinked. Ghost? The older dog's gaze drifted back toward the trees. Names don't mean much. Out here, he muttered. But that's what I was called. The puppy's ears perked. Before what? Ghost was silent for a long moment. Then he stood, stretching out his stiff limbs. Come on, he said. We need to find food before the storm hits. The puppy wanted to press him for answers, but something in Ghost's tone told him not to. Instead, he nodded, hurrying after him as the older dog stepped out into the wild. The wind had picked up. Ghost moved effortlessly through the trees, his movements silent and controlled. The little shepherd struggled to keep up, his paws tripping over roots and uneven dirt. Stay close, Ghost warned. The puppy panted, trying to match his pace. Ghost suddenly stopped, his ears perked forward, his nose twitching. The puppy froze, following his gaze. Up ahead, a fallen tree lay across the ground, and nestled beside it was a small, motionless rabbit. The little shepherd's stomach growled. Ghost's eyes flicked to him. You hungry? The puppy nodded eagerly. Ghost stepped forward, nudging the rabbit with his nose. It was fresh, still warm. Eat, he said. The puppy hesitated. I don't know how. Ghost's expression didn't change. You'll learn. The puppy swallowed hard. He had never eaten anything like this before, but he was starving. Slowly, he stepped forward and took his first hesitant bite. The taste was strange, raw but filling. Ghost watched in silence. When the puppy finished, he licked his lips, feeling stronger than before. Ghost nodded in approval. "You'll survive out here," he said, "if you're willing to learn." The puppy looked up at him, a slow, uncertain warmth filling his chest. "I want to learn." Ghost studied him for a long moment. Then, for the first time, his mouth curved slightly, just barely a ghost of a smile. "You will." The rest of the day was spent training. Ghost taught him how to track, how to move without being heard, how to recognize danger before it was too late. The little shepherd failed often. His paws were clumsy, his instincts still raw. But each time, he tried again. Ghost never coddled him, but he never abandoned him either. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, the puppy's legs ached from exhaustion, but deep in his chest, something burned, something new. They returned to the tree hollow, the sky painted in soft hues of orange and blue. The puppy collapsed onto the dry dirt, his small chest rising and falling with deep, steady breaths. Ghost settled nearby, his gaze fixed on the darkening woods. For a long time, neither spoke. Then finally the puppy broke the silence. "Who taught you?" Ghost's ears flicked. He didn't turn his head, but after a long pause he finally answered, "My father." The puppy blinked. Ghost had never spoken about his past, not once. And now this. The older shepherd sighed, his golden eyes distant. "He taught me everything. How to fight, how to hunt, how to survive." He exhaled sharply. And then he was gone. The puppy swallowed. "Where did he go?" Ghost's jaw tightened. "Doesn't matter." The little shepherd wanted to ask more, but something in Ghost's voice stopped him. So instead, he curled up against the warmth of the tree. And for the first time since he met Ghost, he didn't feel lost anymore. He wasn't just a stray. He wasn't just a lost pup. He was learning, becoming, and something deep in his chest told him he wasn't alone anymore. Not really. The night stretched endlessly over the forest, a blanket of deep blues and scattered stars. The air was crisp and quiet, the echoes of the storm long gone. Inside the hollow tree, the little shepherd stirred, his body sore from the day's training. His paws twitched slightly in his sleep, chasing dreams that felt more like memories. But something woke him, not a noise, not a movement, just a feeling, a shift in the air. His eyes flickered open. Ghost was gone. The puppy's heart jumped in his chest. He scrambled to his feet, his ears perked, his nose twitching desperately. The hollow was empty. The familiar scent of warm earth and damp bark remained, but Ghost's scent was fading. The puppy spun toward the entrance, and then he heard it, a low, distant growl. His paws moved before his mind could catch up. He ran. The forest was darker than before, shadows stretching endlessly beneath the moonlight. The puppy dodged between trees, his legs burning with effort. He followed the scent, Ghost's scent, through the underbrush, his chest pounding. Then ahead, a clearing, and in the middle of it, Ghost stood surrounded by coyotes. More of them this time, 6, maybe 7. Their eyes glowed with hunger, their bodies sleek and ready to strike. Ghost stood in the center, calm, but coiled with tension. The puppy skidded to a stop, his breath catching in his throat. One of the coyotes took a step forward, its teeth flashing under the moonlight. "You should have left when you had the chance," it snarled. Ghost didn't move, didn't blink. His voice was calm. "I don't run." The biggest coyote let out a low, rumbling laugh. "You don't have to. We'll end this right here." The pack tensed, and then they attacked. Ghost exploded into motion, his jaws snapping like lightning, teeth sinking into the first attacker's leg. The coyote yelped, stumbling back. Another leaped for him, but Ghost spun, his powerful frame slamming it into the ground. But there were too many. One lunged for Ghost's back, another tried to bite his leg. For the first time, Ghost faltered. The puppy froze. This was it. Ghost couldn't win alone. He needed help. The little shepherd's chest heaved, and then something snapped inside him. He didn't think, didn't hesitate, didn't fear. He attacked. The first coyote never saw him coming. The puppy barreled into its side, knocking it off balance. His tiny teeth snapped onto its ear, biting down as hard as he could. The coyote shrieked and thrashed. Ghost's head whipped toward him. For a split second, their eyes met. And then, Ghost moved. Together, they fought side by side. The little shepherd bit, dodged, lunged, moving purely on instinct. Ghost struck with precision, his experience guiding every move. The coyotes began to panic. One by one, they fell back. When the last one turned and fled into the night, it was over. The clearing fell silent. Ghost stood still, his breath heavy. His fur bristled and his side bled from a shallow scratch, but he didn't acknowledge it. Instead, his gaze locked onto the puppy, who panted, his tiny body shaking from the rush. Ghost stepped forward. He didn't speak, didn't need to. He simply lowered his head and nudged the puppy's forehead with his own, a rare sign of respect. "You did good, kid." The puppy blinked, stunned, his tail wagging just once. Then Ghost turned. "Come on," he said. "Let's go home." They walked side by side through the forest, the scent of rain still lingering in the air. The puppy felt different, not weak, not lost, not afraid. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was learning, becoming something more. He looked up at Ghost, admiration in his eyes. For the first time, he didn't feel like just a stray. He felt like he belonged, like he had a family, like he had a future. And as they disappeared into the trees, the night felt just a little less dark. Against all odds, the little shepherd survived. He wasn't just a lost puppy anymore. He had found strength, purpose, and a guide who would teach him how to survive. Ghost had saved him, but in the end, the puppy had saved Ghost too, a bond forged in the wild, built on trust, courage, and instinct. And this was only the beginning of their journey. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so more people can witness incredible stories like this one. Because sometimes, the strongest bonds are the ones we never expected to find.